Congrats on getting beyond $1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of Easy Pay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond $1 million.
Neal Tricarico, I appreciate you coming out, man. It's awesome to connect. We've got some mutual friends and interesting overlapping paths in the past.
For sure. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we're at Traffic and Conversion Summit, and you are, to a great extent, making sure it's a profitable event.
I am.
Different ways.
Yes. It's my number one priority.
That's awesome, which has made it difficult for us to connect here. So I'm really grateful that you took time out because, yeah, of all the things you could be doing, this probably isn't the most profitable, at least not right now.
Maybe not right now, but the most fun, maybe.
That's my objective.
Nice.
So here's what I know about you. I know that you are very good at sales, very good at setting up sales processes and sales teams. Can you give a little background for kind of how you grew up in sales and where you've been in the last 10 years, where you are now?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. I think you nailed it. I came up, much like you, it sounds like, in coffees for closers, right? So that sort of old school philosophy. I came up in software sales, and it didn't really fit with who I am. Take some showers each night to shower that off. And luckily, as the world changed, people didn't want to be sold to that anymore. I didn't want to either. But I moved from software sales. I got my first sales leadership position or management position with Deepak Chopra in San Diego. That was pretty awesome. He introduced me to Tony Robbins and worked a number of years with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes, helping them launch what became Business Mastery. Did my own things for a bit, and then came back to Tony about 6 years ago and was his executive sales leader. Brought 4 teams to record-breaking results, and then just joined Ryan and Richard and Roland this past January. But yeah, my passion is really sales processes, building an effective sales team, and then mentoring and leading, especially now that I've been in sales for nearly 30 years, like mentoring and bringing up, young reps to produce their best results.
Yeah, I love that, man. What can you, for context, like before we started, we had our own little podcast right before we started, which was full of great stuff. One of the things that came up was the wild variance between the type of sales that you do, right?
Yes.
Like I grew up it sounds like you grew up in a short cycle B2C sale where it's like, we're making this happen right now.
Close them up.
Yeah. Versus, where I live and where it sounds like you're living, or they're different, but a longer relationship-based, intangible sale.
Yes.
What have those sales been?
Yeah.
From the business mastery side of things and to now, are they different or?
Yeah, great question. So you hit the nail on the head. It's no longer about like sales personalities or, I can sell, so therefore I can do a short sale B2C, or I can do an outside sale in front of people, or sell from the stage, or do a consultative sales process. So the business mastery sale, which is a high ticket sale, was an inside consultative type sale, right? And I developed a process to help reps uncover, clients' most important needs and outcomes. Because in a high ticket sale or a consultative sale, you're really looking to create clients, right? I think it was Jay Abraham who said it best, clients are under the care and guidance of an expert. Customers are a transaction. So there's that one, which I enjoy the most because it involves a human relationship like this. But then you look at their sales development reps, so appointment setters or people who are outbounding and working to set up business-to-business appointments. The beauty of working at Tony Robbins is I got to work with an outside sales team, so where we called out to businesses and we sent in reps who presented to large sales teams and sold that way. Then you've got your quick sale B2C. So what I've studied over the years and actually became certified and created my own AI around are what are the specific attributes that show up in this type of sales performance, and people are better suited to, specifically perform in different types of sales than everything.
So you hit on two different things there, because one, you have the consultative, and I'll pull this to present day, but one, you had the consultative, high ticket business mastery package, right?
Yes.
And as somebody that has gone to business mastery, that's probably the live event, and whatever it is now, $7,000 to $10,000.
Yeah, 10,000. Yeah,
10,000, and that's the consultative sale. But the SDRs are selling to set the appointment to pitch it.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Which is in itself a very specific, dedicated sales process.
It is.
But with a different outcome, different cycle.
Yeah.
How do you view the approach for that versus the approach for the other in terms of who you're looking for?
Yeah, great question, because this has come up in my new environment. People will confuse often that SDR is a path to consultative sales, right? So let's put a junior rep in SDR, and then as they get better, then they can do consultative. It's not, so an SDR, I don't want to say it's commoditized. There's not like a growth path for it, but you've got to be really good at executing quick connection with somebody. And if you're appointment setting, asking some quick questions that show rapport, though in your care about where they are and what they need. And then you need to have some transition. So it's kind of like, Tony called it pass the mic. Think about a baton. There's got to be enough rapport built. We've got to uncover that this person can be served by this call, but then their outcome is to get them scheduled, and then hold them accountable for showing. You've got to make some commitment, like, listen, when you get on the call with Brad for this business strategy session, this is going to be the most valuable call you've had all year to grow your business. So the only thing we'd ask so that he can meet that outcome is that you show. Now, barring an emergency or something, Brad's going to be there, but we would just ask for the same professional courtesy from you. If something comes up, please reach out to me and let me know, right? So they're really responsible for not only scheduling, but show rate, right? Because anything can happen between that moment that this strategy session is interesting to the prospect, and then everything that comes up between then and Tuesday at 10:30 when they have to show up.
Yeah. God, I'm going to go deep on all this stuff because it's so relevant to so many people, me in particular.
Cool.
So how do you incentivize that, and what are the KPIs for that?
Yeah, great question. So here's what's really happening in the space. So early on, it was like at Tony Robbins, we had a team, and they would get a small salary, and then they would get compensated for a completed meeting. And then if a sale was made, they would get compensated a percentage of that sale. But what we're finding out now is it is really an opportunity to outsource. So I've looked at, and we've worked with some companies that that's their focus. They can get way more activity going and have a specific focus. And as an executive sales leader, but also for my sales managers, it gives them a lot more leverage, right? To just have KPIs and outcomes for those teams driving that. So that's something that's just come up for me in the last few months. It does seem very interesting.
Interesting. Okay, so now you're playing with the idea of sourcing the appointment setting, sourcing the SDR process.
Yes.
And then focusing on what in software sales is the AE process,
yes.
right?
Yep.
The actual sales presentation.
Yes.
And for anybody that doesn't like acronyms or know what we're talking about, the sales cycle for, I think this is popularized really through SaaS, right?
Yes.
Through software as a service, which really is Salesforce in the beginning. But it's the idea of having a sales development rep, an SDR, making phone calls to set appointments.
Yeah.
But the SDRs aren't really trained well enough to do the appointments.
Correct.
Nor is that their focus.
Or skill set.
Yeah. And I think that's key, right? Yeah. But they set it, and then an account executive gets on the phone and does the presentation.
Yes.
And sometimes in software as a service, they do it with like an engineer that has the specifics, right?
Yes.
The account executive knows how to sell, knows the basics. The engineer knows all the nitty-gritty stuff around the platform.
Yeah.
And it could be a quote-unquote sales engineer that does that. But I love the idea of incentivizing for completed meeting.
Yeah. Oh, you got to incentivize for completed meeting, because then what happens that could create friction between the consultative rep and the SDR is if it's a booked meeting, they're just focused on getting whatever up on the calendar.
Right.
And in a high-ticket opportunity to take that resource with that kind of compensation, even though it's pay for performance, and just set stuff up on the calendar is recipe for failure.
It's useless.
Yeah. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I came up in SaaS, and so I'm thinking of Jakob. He was my sales engineer, came around with me, and we sold virtualization software on Linux, and man, I needed him like my right hand.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Didn't know the answers otherwise.
No, it didn't.
Well, and what tends to happen with salespeople when they don't know the answers is they make shit up.
They make shit up. People see through that nowadays.
They do.
You're a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge, one of the things that has become true about, I think it's true for everybody, but in my world, we have a lot of sensitive data, right? We look at people's back-end financials.
Sure.
And so for 15 years, somebody tells me a story, then I see their financials. Somebody tells me a story, then I see their financials. And this keeps happening. And as Tony says, like, it doesn't take a genius. Eventually patterns emerge.
Yes.
Right? And so something has been internalized. Now, when somebody says something to me, man, my bullshit radar goes off.
Yeah.
It's pretty sensitive.
Yeah.
Because I have enough data points to support that. And I think that's very true in sales in general.
It is.
I think you're far better off saying, I don't know the answer to that. Like, and by the way, that only works if you also are very good at what you do and very knowledgeable.
Yes.
If that's the answer all the time for everything, we have a problem.
We have a problem. Yeah.
But if you can demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, it's totally acceptable to say, I don't know that specific.
Yeah, and I would even take it one level further. Before you can demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, in the consultative sale, you need to be able to demonstrate that I understand what you need, right? Because what's really most important, like these prospects will come to us for something that they think they want, right? But most often, the most effective thing that we can do is truly execute a questioning strategy to understand what they really actually need. Ryan Deiss says this from time to time. He said, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
I love that.
We've got a lot of malpractice in sales because people are just prescribing a solution without helping the prospect, without first understanding what the prospect really actually needs, helping the prospect articulate back that they understand what they really actually need. Then you don't have to close. You can enroll because you've got a client who's articulating understanding of what they need, a match of the solution that you're presenting, and you have enrollment. It preempts overcoming objections and all of it.
I love that. I love the idea of enrollment versus closing.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things that we do internally is we have a handful of client avatars, and on each of them we've got these. They're all over the place. We've got these cards that we use, and it's like a funny picture of a person, their face, and like a little write up. But we have what they want and then what they need.
Yes,
and
smart.
They're not the same thing.
They're not. Yeah.
How do you navigate that for the SDR versus the AE if you do a two-step process, right?
Right, sure. So, the SDR, you can't have more than a couple questions, right? And the questions got to be around their fit for the business strategy session. So it doesn't have to be qualification around their fit for the ultimate end product or service per se, especially if you have a suite of offerings. So like it's scalable, we've got the high-end masterminds. But if you're dependent upon where you are in the entrepreneurial life cycle, the whole thing is a fit for you, but you may not yet have a predictable selling system. So you may still be trying to figure out predictable revenue. So we can serve you, with an accelerator that's going to support you in building out sales and predictable revenue. But we have to know that you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. If you don't have predictable revenue, you've got a commitment to predictable revenue. We asked some questions in the application and with the SDR to determine your level of commitment to really actually running a business, and understanding of that you're willing to invest some money and some time in it. Then you get on the call. So the SDR, it's like one or two questions because the outcome is to get them booked. And then for the consultative rep, again, it's diagnosing. It's asking a deeper level of questions, right? So they might come and say, I need more leads. Or I need to build a sales team. Why do you need more leads? What's broken? So it's getting to that level. Like you said, they're coming in for their want, but they really actually need is here. But you and I and the reps know what they want and what they need. But if I tell you what you need, it's kind of like, so what? But if I ask you the questions that help you have the breakthroughs to understand, I thought I wanted this, but this is what I really actually need leverage. I need to be working. I'm a business owner, but I need to move from having a well-paying job in my own business to real, true business ownership, meaning this business can run independent of my labor. You're here enjoying yourself with countless interviews with great people, no doubt, but that business is at least going, if not growing, while you're here.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I have lots of questions.
I know I've thrown a lot at you.
No, it's good. How do you train those people to do that? So and also that's what I was going to say is for context, we jumped from the Tony Robbins, Chet Holmes organization, Business Mastery, into Scalable.
Yes.
And Scalable is providing information and courses and masterminds around scaling a company.
Yeah.
Right? And so some of that is a simpler form is just, can we get you education to teach you things? Mm-hmm. The other is, are you ready to pay a lot more money to be a part of a program where we're going to actually be hands-on and help you do something?
That's correct.
Which are very different. So asking the questions to diagnose makes sense. So before we get into the training side of it, one of the things that popped out that you just said was the objectives for the first person and the questions are focused around getting the appointment.
Correct.
I don't need to focus on the end outcome. We have to get the appointment.
We have to get the appointment because that's what the enrollment is for, if you will, right? So it's not the SDR's responsibility to get people who are going to enroll on the call. The SDR's responsibility is to get people who are qualified for the breadth of the call. The consultative sales rep's responsibility is to diagnose the needs and understand in his prescription pad or her prescription pad which of the offerings best suits those needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And that's what's been really refreshing as you talk about the transition from Tony over here to Scalable. I love Tony. Tony's a dear friend, and it's events and guru. What's powerful over here is serving the same community, the business community, but with it's like an aggregation of knowledge. And we've got all these accelerators, education, learning, and you can participate in real time. You don't have to wait to come to an event.
Yeah, I like it. So the training side of things, I was talking to somebody at a dinner a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about their build out of the outbound sales process. Mm-hmm. And it took them a very long time. And part of that was that we walked through his head, and his narrative was there were 22 different steps that he had to get to the final sale. Mm-hmm. And we're on the little front end parts of this is, well, first, what's the structure and what's the frame? Mm-hmm. Second is how do you source the list? And then how do you qualify the list? And then how do you set the appointment? How do you get people to show? How do you have the right presentation? Then you work on the close rate and
yes,
little bits. So we could talk about the specifics, but when you came in to Scalable, you had come from this place where you built out this framework and this system.
Yes.
Did it map onto the new place? Do you have an overarching structure of, hey, this is the way that I think the sales process should work in general, and here are the elements of the sales process?
Yeah, great question. So there's two, got to unpack that a little bit. So the short answer is for what we're doing at Scalable, the consultative approach that we leverage for business mastery maps over here, that consultative sales process. And I created your 7-step blueprint for intentional sales. It's a 7-step process that intentional sales reps should execute. But that's different than SDR. It's different than all the different things that we've talked about B2C. But when you're talking about training, if I could zoom out so that's applicable in a wider sort of visual, is the power of training, the things that you must know independent of the type of sale. So independent of consultative B2B, B2C short sale, SDR is, and this is what I've studied with the sales strengths identifier AI, is that there are patterns that show up always, specific attributes that show up. There's 54 of them, and different attributes are more important for a different type of sale. So when you leverage something like that AI, and you understand, okay, ideally if you have a team in place, then you assess that team and you can see for the top performers, to Tony's point, what are the patterns that are showing up for success that aren't showing up here? And so you get to leverage that AI and that data, number one, for training if you have an existing team, because there are no perfect sales reps. There are no perfect AIs. There's no perfect assessments. So your training needs to be focused on closing the gaps in the areas where they're weak. So you don't want to train all your reps on all this stuff, or if you do, only once when you start. And I'll get into the technology of training in just a second because that's an important piece. But then you leverage that same approach now with hiring. Say, all right, well, now I know that the attributes that produce the best results in this particular type of sales environment are these. Now when I hire, I don't even necessarily need to ask for resumes. I mean, you do it because it's expected. You have them take the AI, they shoot a video introducing themselves, and then in the interview, instead of asking them questions and then selling themselves on you, you put them into specific role plays in the scenarios where they're weak. So you put them into the role plays that they're going to be doing if it's outbounding, that they're going to be doing if it's consultative, and you just tell them like, hey, this is the best way for us to both have success and be sure it's a fit for you and a fit for us and that you're going to make money is to go through these role plays. Like, let's find out. And you do it. And if they hit those hurdles, you likely have a good hire. If they don't, you've saved tens of thousands of dollars and they didn't come on for a job that they weren't a fit for. And I don't mean to go on and on, but this is one of the best things I learned from Chet Holmes is you've got to understand their rejection armor, their ability to overcome objections. And even if that interview goes really, really well, you got to say something like, hey, Brad, this interview is going well. You seem like you're a good salesman. I don't have the feel that you'd be a good fit in my environment. And as hard as it is, especially if you're building a team and you feel like you need them, if they thank you and walk out, it's tough, but you saved a lot of money. But they're like, hold on a second, Neal, I don't know what you're talking about. We just uncovered, these are your, this is the challenge. This is how I can help you. You've said this would be a great fit. What am I missing here? Well, now you have someone who knows that if they can't overcome objections for their own talent, they're sure as hell not going to come up with overcoming objections in a sales environment. So that's the theory behind that. And then if you want to explore training or technology and training, it's pretty powerful too.
I love that. I do. I want to talk about all of it. We've talked for like 7 hours on this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, part of it too is that one of the things that I find inherently interesting and to a never-ending extent is you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And the deeper you get into a topic, the more focused your questions end up being, the more nuanced they are, and the more you can dig in. And for sales, like I said, I grew up in sales, so I'm thinking about it all the time, and it's changing all the time, right? So like you're talking about the hiring process for sales and what you look for, and even within the hiring process, we've got sourcing candidates and then screening, which is what you're talking about, and then what I actually look at is the hiring, which is the onboarding and engagement.
Yes.
But let's talk about the sourcing and screening a little bit more, because it sounds like you have specific things for screening in terms of who's going to be the right fit.
Yes.
But let's go to sourcing for a second. Where are you getting salespeople right now?
Well, so the two main places to get salespeople, number one is really obvious. It's your network, referrals, right? And so, I've been blessed for a number of years to produce sales results. So I'm usually able to, if I'm starting a team, start with someone from my network, but network and referrals are your best place to get them. And then number two is social media recruiting. I'm not a big marketer, but we're here at TNC, but it's using all those same strategies to recruit people, right? So putting up ads, having the founders shoot videos, attracting people from the space and the environment that you're already in. And what this creates is an opportunity to attract people who may not even necessarily be looking, but are influenced because they didn't know there was an opportunity to come join Digital Marketer, come join Scalable, or whatever it is. So social media, in my opinion, is number one outside of your network. It really is. You've got to have an ad up, and maybe you have to be out on the job boards. You'll find some needles in the haystack. That's the sourcing. The screening I can help you with. But social media and leveraging that is the way to go. Think about, where are people?
I love it, man.
That's where they are all day, every day.
I love it. And it's also not the common answer, right? So, and it's also, by the way, not the answer from 3 years ago either.
No, it's not.
No. So even pre-COVID, the majority of our sourcing came from more traditional sources. The job boards, the Indeeds, the LinkedIns, the Craigslist. And that's changing.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's where people are.
Now, LinkedIn is powerful if you use it as social media. So if you're putting content out there and you're attracting people, you're letting them know you're looking. The recruiter technology is pretty cool if you got to go down to that next rung. But yeah, Indeed and the boards are kind of like needles in the haystack.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the technology side of things for the recruiting.
Well, just real quick, I was going to say that first level, what did you call it? So we had sourcing and then we had screening. So what's powerful about using the AI is now when somebody applies and they take the AI, there's a minimum threshold. So we come up with the team, what we're looking for, what the minimum threshold is to be considered to be interviewed. So if they don't meet that threshold, you just have your if you are casting a big net, you're out on the job boards or you've got, your careers page up on your site, everybody comes through, starts with the AI. They hit a minimum threshold, then they've earned the right to have an interview. If they don't hit that threshold, they just get an autoresponder just, graciously thanking them, but they're not a fit. So that's kind of your screening. And then your next phase is the interview is to make the best decision possible. And then that's sort of what we talked about, using the AI to put them into role plays and such.
Yeah, I love the idea of role plays too. So I want to go back to the screening.
Yeah.
But first, to sourcing, you mentioned the idea of recruiting platforms, recruiting tools. What have you played with? What have you used that's worked?
I mean, we used to use a lot of applicant tracking systems and things like that, but now you can use the same things that you're using in marketing, sales landing pages, right? And so they go through the funnel and they take action. They click to take their assessment. They upload their video. They fill out the application. Actually, I did it in backwards order. They fill out the application. Then there's a spot to, there's the link to take the assessment, application, and then the application, a spot to upload their video, but just like sales landing pages.
Yeah. So whatever software is the answer.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But I mean, if you're recruiting a big team, you're going to need someone to manage all that coming in.
Yeah. I'm familiar with this.
Yeah.
It's a horrible headache if you don't have a good system.
Correct. Yeah. And what's cool with the AI is, at least for all the assessments, those come into a place where they're easily to see who meets what thresholds. And
okay, so you keep talking about the AI.
Yeah.
So let's drill into that a little bit.
Okay.
That's something that you built?
Yeah. It's built on DISC, so the DISC personality profile. But back in 2012, I spent a week out with them, and so it's not like a marketing quiz or something like that. It's a true instrument based on the foundation of their DISC profile. It's constantly updating based on attributes that we're seeing in success. Seeing success, but in different types of sales environments. And so it's been a powerful tool for businesses to recruit, but then also you're using it in the same way to train. So now instead of an interview every day or in the evenings, I mean, Chet was a beast at this, you do hot seats. So you break down the tape, right? But you're able to understand, like, here's where this current reps, even though they're producing well, their gaps or their challenges are here. So you're looking in that area of the call, in that area of the interaction, and coming up with ways to support them in getting better in those areas. And that's where technology is, independent of my AI, the technology out there to run hot seat training is powerful.
Is that a tool that you sell?
No, it's not. So are you doing your consultative sales conversations on the phone or on Zoom?
Yeah, either or.
Okay, so
Zoom when possible.
Yeah, okay. And so maybe not because it's international, or they won't get on Zoom?
Just if they won't get on.
Okay.
Right? Like one of the most frustrating things, I think, as a salesperson, but just in general, is when you send out a Zoom invite and then they fucking call in.
Right.
And you're like, damn it.
But that's part of the upfront part. Like if they're
setting the expectation.
Setting the expectation, right? Yeah. And there's got to be something of meaningful value for them to get on that call. And in return, there's some ground rules, like showing up on Zoom.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been there where you jump on a Zoom call and somebody calls in.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, damn it.
And that's the other thing with setting the expectations in the SDR about safety first, of not driving and everything like that, but the commitment of presence. So when you get them on Zoom, the beauty of Zoom is the ability to understand, to experience rapport is magnified.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, all sales are won, 45% of the sales won through your ability to establish rapport, right? So if I could see you, if I could interact with you, if you're looking at the other screens, your arms are crossed, I'm not going to bulldoze into presenting my solution. I got to connect with you.
Yeah.
So we only use Zoom. Like if they're international, they got to find their way to Zoom. But then there's a powerful software that we use called Gong. Have you heard of Gong?
I have heard of Gong.
Yeah, Gong is amazing. And I don't have any, I should rep it. I recommend it to everybody. But there's other ones out there like it. But basically, Gong is recording the Zoom call. And within minutes, it produces a playback of the interaction. So you see both people. It's got counters for who is talking and when, overall percentage of time. So if I'm the rep and you're the prospect, it should be 60-40, 50-50, something like that. But also if you're running a consultative sales process, you should see across the timeline of the interactions that at the beginning, rep is talking very little, asking questions, prospect is talking a lot. As we make the turn to building value and presenting our solution, then we're talking a bit more. But you can literally pause, break down the tape, see where he reacted that way, or she crossed her arms, or whatever it is. I mean, it's the stuff awesome. Now is game changing.
Well, now I need to dig into that.
You do. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to go over it a little bit tomorrow in my talk.
Oh, you are? Good. Even without analytics.
Yeah.
Just the visual.
Yes.
I mean, humans are, we internalize these things really quickly.
Yeah.
We make sense of it really quickly.
Yep.
And like I jumped on a call the other day with somebody, and she did not like what I was saying. Mm-hmm. But I verbally couldn't tell that.
Yep.
If I had been on a phone call, I would have had no idea. But I could tell by her facial expression and total lack of interest.
Yeah.
And in posture. I was like, okay, well, I'm not hitting the mark here. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, there's another person on the call that did like me, but I wouldn't have seen that otherwise.
And what's cool, what I like to do sometimes is, because this is my passion. I mean, even though I've got sales managers and things like that, I mean, no one can get in the way of the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday Gong breakdowns. It's my favorite. But sometimes I'll just so you're on Zoom breaking down Gong of the Zoom call that the client and the prospect were on. So it's pretty rad.
Yeah.
But I will let the tape run, and I'll look at my rep to see if they react to what I saw, right? So with some of the more senior reps, rather than stop and pointing them out, you could see them, they're like, oh man, yeah, look, she looked away, or oh, I see what happened there, and then it's like they can see it, which is so much better than me pointing it out.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, now you're getting into sales management.
Yeah.
I love it. So let me see if I can try to be sequential here at all. Not that it matters really, but we've got sourcing. We talked about screening people. You talked about the AI, but let's hit on that for a second. What are the core characteristics that you're looking for? And you mentioned like 54.
Yeah, there's 7 core ones.
Okay.
So number 1 is mindset, someone's ability to shift their focus, right? So before they even get into a sales call or a sales engagement, their ability to move away from their own preoccupations. I got to hit quota. I got to close this gal. Whatever it may be. You got to put all those in a box and set them aside. So somebody's ability to shift their focus from their own needs to someone else. That's step 1. So the 7, and then there's 54 within that. Step 2 is establish rapport. Right? Again, we talked about it as 45% of any enrollment is won through your ability to establish rapport. So there's sub-attributes within that. Third is diagnose needs. We've talked about that at length, right? So 25% of the call is won through your ability to ask the questions that move someone from what they think they want to what they really actually need, right? Price is only an issue when the value is not clear. So we have to uncover what they really actually want before we present the solution, right? Otherwise, it's malpractice. So you got 70% of your sale won through your ability to establish rapport, to diagnose needs, to ask really good questions, right? So then 4 is build value. So now it's like your ability to present the solution, but not pitch. Your ability to tie the attributes or the benefits of your program or service back to what you diagnosed. So there's some sub-attributes within that. And then the 5th one is my favorite. It's called create buy-in, right? So when we create buy-in, now I'm going to say something, we've understood the needs. Brad, I understand these are your top 3 challenges. Here's why. If I can show you how we can help you with those, would you be interested in what I have to offer? Step 4 is you build value around it. You tie them together. now is the moment of truth in the conversation. Brad, I'm curious, why is this something you must do now? And this is where we find out. If you articulate back to me in your own words why you must do it, we have enrollment, step 7. But if you don't, you're like, well, I'm not sure, or I think it's too much, or actually, when does it start? Then we've got some things that we have to work out. So 4 is build value. 5 is create buy-in. When the client articulates in their own words why they're making the investment, that's the outcome of any consultative sales call. If I tell you why, it's kind of so what, but if you tell me, now we've got enrollment. And then if we don't, then it's step number 6, but it's overcome objections. And so those are the 7 core attributes. So shift focus, establish rapport, diagnose needs, build value, overcome objections, and enroll. But the 2 most important and the least trainable are your ability to establish rapport and your ability to overcome objections, right? So you could have SDRs that score really well in establish rapport but not overcome objections. They're better suited for SDR or client success.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the idea of client success is an interesting one to me too, because in a lot of ways, I didn't see it this way until probably 2 years ago. Our client success team, we call merchant success in our world, but we very much look at that as a sales role and not a customer service role.
Oh, it absolutely is.
No, we are absolutely doing what we can to remind clients of the way to best utilize our services and how we can help them most.
Yeah.
But it is a sales process.
Well, and I would argue retention is your number 1 sales strategy. Every month that you keep those clients is far more profitable than what it costs to acquire new ones.
Yeah. So those are the 7 steps of the sales process. How does that map onto the sourcing, screening, finding them? Yeah, so those are the core 7. And then within them, there's 6 to 8 sub-attributes that get you to the 54. So those 7 need to be present in any human interaction. But where and how you score best will determine which role you may be best suited for. Got it. So when you're sourcing people and when you're ultimately screening them, you're looking for, are you good at building rapport? Yeah. Right? Yep. And are you good at handling objections? Yes. In your day-to-day life as a human? Yep. Not necessarily as a salesperson, but are these things that you portray as exactly? Because, let's be real. The thing that sucks about sales is we've created, or a number of years ago was created as something other. My God, all sales is this. Yeah. Human interaction. Yeah. If I can connect with you and earn your trust and respect, you might enroll for something likely just based on that. Yeah. But sales has become this other thing. So you hit the nail on the head, and that's what was so great about my partnership with Deiss, is none of the questions have anything to do with sales. So how are we showing up as humans? How are we interacting with other people? Yeah. That's why some people are better than other at sales, but sales is a myth. Yeah. It's all about human connection. I love that. You said something in the beginning, which was, I grew up in intense sales, and I had to sometimes shower it off me at the end of the night. Yeah. And for a long time, my frame has been really good salespeople represent really good products. Yeah. People that are good at convincing other people of buying shitty products aren't really good salespeople. No. They're just shitty people. Yeah. Exactly. You hit it on the head. Really good salespeople, they should be really good people. Yeah. Right? And so, decades ago, that's what screwed it up for the rest of us, is somehow it was this other thing, and it was really shitty people doing really shitty things. Yeah, totally. Totally. In my world, I believe that life is too short to not do things the best way possible. Yeah. And one of those things is making sure that all parties in an engagement win. Yeah. And I don't mean had moderate success or an average result, but everybody is thrilled with a situation. Because if you can get it where everybody's thrilled, man, that thing just happens forever. And it's uplifting, enlightening, fun, energetic, all the good attributes. As soon as somebody falls off of the, hey, this is great, down to nah, it's okay, then you lose some of that. You do. And the beginning of that is, like you were talking about with the AE, and the process of discovering wants and needs. Yeah. Right? Yeah. If we can't discover that on the front end, what is the chance that we're going to be able to deliver it? Agreed. And that's what's so powerful about the create buy-in step, is you have to make mutual commitments to each other, right? So especially in a high ticket sale,
your transformation or the result that you're looking to achieve by making that investment is not just going to happen to you. The client has to do something, participate. They have to take some sort of action. So the rep has to be really adept at articulating and unlocking those mutual commitments that we're making and the solution and service is going to provide, but that you're doing. So there's an accountability there towards that win.
I love that. And I think that also applies through the hiring process.
Yeah.
Right? When you bring a salesperson on, right? If you don't have the same process where you're setting expectations and making that mutual commitment and agreement, inevitably, once the product is delivered, which is their job in your company, there's going to be misalignment, right? If you don't make that happen on the front end. Well, we could talk about this forever. I wish we had more time to do so.
Me too. There's a lot of great things, but I'm sure our paths will cross again.
No question about it, man. So scalable is where your energy is going right now.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you, dig into you?
Yeah. So great. The great thing that I love about working with Ryan and Roland and Richard is that's my outcome. Like, I am an entrepreneur at heart, but what feeds my soul is leading teams. So that's my day job, if you will. But you can find me at nealtricarico.com. You'll probably have to put it in the presenter notes. nealtricarico.com. And my assessment's there if it's helpful for you to take as a free gift. But yeah, so I'm doing my own things as well, helping out businesses, building sales teams. They're helping people build sales teams and such. And that's what I'm grateful to these guys about, because I can get these systems in and get good people executing them and keep doing stuff like this.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that, dude. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Brad.
Definitely.
Pleasure.
If you learned one thing on this episode, share it with another entrepreneur. They need to hear it. Also subscribe so that new episodes just show up on your phone. It's a lot easier that way. And if you want the really good stuff, check out our free BAM! Tactics and Strategies course. It's where we curate the best tips, tricks, and tools that our guests know, whether they've shared them on the podcast or not. Just go to beyondamill.com. You'll also find previous episodes and show notes at beyondamill.com.